Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me around. So my name is Michael. I'm actually been in Taxfix for about 11 months as head of marketing here. It doesn't sound like a lot, but I think in startup years, it's actually amounts to significantly more than the real 11 months because we went through growth between like 30 people company to 110 plus people company and went through 10x growth already, and it was quite an interesting ride, basically. But also just to give you my background a little bit, so I worked as a head of marketing for another startup before that, and before that for 8 years for Hotels.com, the Expedia brand. So let me start quickly with my presentation, and do ask any questions if you have anything. Otherwise, I can try to answer as many of them towards the end. But this is my agenda for today. So I wanted to talk, give you a little bit of introduction of the company, but then go into when to start with brand campaign in terms of strategy, the checklist before that, media, production, test and tracking, Taxfix approach, and overall kind of do's and don'ts, and how can you approach the whole branding. Because I think this is one of the topics that people are usually a little afraid to start with, because it always associates with a lot of money. But hopefully after that presentation, you will see that there are a lot of other more scalable and kind of smaller ways of starting thinking about your brand. Anyway, let me go into the first slide. So a little bit about the company. So Taxfix is based in Berlin, in Germany, and we're tailoring currently only to German market, but we're expanding next year to France and Italy. But basically, it started with the problem that the process of filing taxes is very broken in Germany, and it's very either very complicated or very expensive. So what most of the people are kind of left with is either kind of going with tax accountant and pay a lot of cash for that. For instance, I myself had to do it last year through a tax advisor, and it actually cost me 680 euros, which is insane amount of money. The other way around is to go with the government-owned tax declaration. It is free, but on the other hand, it is so complicated and written in such a complicated language that you actually will take you at least six hours to fill it up, even if you're German. And lastly, it's not mandatory for everyone to file taxes, so you can just forgo your average refund and just leave it to the government. And actually, more than 22% of German population do that and leave approximately 10 billion euros on the table to the government, which is a huge problem. So we at Taxfix try to basically help people rectify it. What we do is it's kind of a app-based, app-first product, but we also launched the desktop solution recently, and it's quite easy. You just have to answer a few questions about yourself. You will see the result of your potential calculation with no commitment to basically submitting it at this point. And if you like what you see, you click submit, and if you get more than 50 euros back as a refund, you will have to pay 34.99. If you don't get more than 50 euros, then it's free of charge. So as a company, we started in 2016. We started operating in 2017. We raised this year more than 30 million. As I said, the company grew to more than 110 people. We've been focusing mostly on the app-first approach, but also have the desktop solution now, and there's no forms and no paperwork in our product. So quite easy. This is a few quick numbers. So quite a lot of downloads that we already received, positive reviews. We also submitted more than 3,000 tax declarations per day. Highest refund somebody received more than 11,000 euros, and overall we already returned to people more than 100 million euros in tax refunds. So that's it about the company. So let me go into the brand. So most of you, I think, heard about the first two approaches to the brand, and most companies usually think from this perspective. It's either bottom up, which means that you're building your company based on the digital channels, on digital marketing. You slowly scale it until you see that you're starting to hit the ceiling with most of your channels, and that you cannot really push the growth any further. And this is the time that you start to kind of invest into brand, that as being seeing the kind of a logical next step to taking the company to the next level. The other approach, which also some companies undertake, is basically going really big bang with brand from the very beginning, like going with the TV with really big publicity, even before they start with any other kind of marketing. This one is really kind of helps to shortcut the whole approach, and it kind of really helps to build brand from the day one. But also it is very risky, because usually the returns on your brand investment are not absolutely immediate. They usually take some time, and it takes time to basically build the proper brand. And at that time, like if you start with that and something goes wrong in your business, you'll never get this money back, and this is the money committed. So what I like is the hybrid model, so kind of a combination of the two. So you do start with the marketing channels at the beginning, but you actually start with brand as well, almost not almost in parallel, but at least like in the second year of your operation, and you try to start kind of building the brand awareness. And this can be through small kind of branded approaches, but it also can be even through your digital channels, by simply kind of looking after your proposition, after your visuals, after your overall approach. And but yeah, let me go into this in a little bit more detail on the next slides. So what do you have to have before you actually start thinking about the brand and really kind of approaching it? This is the checklist that I created for you. So first of all, like few kind of, basics, like working website or presence in the App Store, product, the service itself, so kind of a no-brainer. But what I would really suggest is also have a pretty good tracking reporting system, because your brand will not be attribute to only your direct or organic channel, but it will also have a pretty big impact on all your other acquisition channels. So you really need to understand the impact on the channel by channel basis to be able to really determine the efficiency of brand, and understand how much you're paying extra because of the increased volumes from your acquisition channels. Channel attribution, same reason here. Geographical data. So this is, I think, is a very important part, mainly for testing purposes, but I will touch base on it in a bit on the further slides. Targeting audience. So this is very important. You need to know what your audience, who is your audience, because even, for instance, for the product like ours, which is pretty much can target anybody in Germany who pays taxes, you can't really go blunt and go for everyone. First of all, it's usually expensive, and at the end of the day, you're running a risk of being quite generic. So you better choose your audience carefully and find who is your core. Who are you talking with? For that, once you identify this, you need to identify the clean visuals, the proposition, which really tailors toward that specific target audience. And lastly, you just need to position yourself really clearly within the market, so whoever sees your brand, they understand that this is exactly where they sit, and this is exactly what they stand for. Once you have this, you start thinking about the media. In the old days, like everybody, whenever you say brand, everybody associates brand with offline media, so the likes of television, radio, magazines, newspapers. But I think in this day and age, it's as much true for this media as it is for anything that has to do with digital channels. And frankly, each one of your acquisition channels is also contributing towards your brand. Think about production, because again, like based on the media that you choose, you really need to based on that, the time, the budget, the approach towards the production will vary massively. So basically, think about media, think about your concept, your resources, time, and budget. Because, for instance, if you're building your brand through something as simple as a Google search, it is pretty straightforward. You don't need any production almost there. So you just need some bits and bobs of the copywriting content and landing pages. But then, for instance, it becomes a little bit more complicated if you're planning to do it through display banners. It becomes even more complicated if you start kind of using for instance, the outdoor or print, because there you need to have everything in more higher quality, and the complexity kind of goes almost geometrical once you're starting thinking about TV, because there you definitely need to have a great quality, and there you cannot create your production within a couple of weeks or couple of days. Here you probably need a couple of months just to make something happen. So always have this in mind when choosing the media and choosing how you're going to approach it. Test and tracking. So I think there are a few interesting things here. So first of all, like quite a lot of people are afraid of brand because it's usually considered untrackable or very hard to track. So I would beg to differ on this one because there are a few ways of tracking it. Again, none of them are absolutely 100% bulletproof, but they are actually pretty straightforward and pretty accurate as well, and will give you the satisfactory results. So first one is more qualitative. It's pre and post awareness study. So that's basically just making the survey with a big enough audience before and after your branding campaign to understand how the awareness of your brand changed, both aided awareness and unaided awareness. The performance data decomposition is I think more accurate because it's more kind of quantitative data and it's based on your own numbers. But for that, you do need to have a pretty good BI analytical resources in-house. And I definitely recommend that this is very important to have, because basically once you determine the baseline of your performance and really kind of create the right model to be able to track any interventions that happen due to branded activity, you will be able to really determine in terms of the pure numbers what was the impact of that. The other one is kind of immediate twitch. So there are some softwares that do that for you, but you can do it by yourself as well. So for that, the main thing is the campaign to be quite big enough to really have the impact. So for instance, if you are using TV, right after the TV spot, you can just go to your App Store or Google Analytics and try to find out like how did the traffic change? Was there an immediate impact on traffic? And that will give you an indication about the whole thing. And lastly, like more kind of causal effect is the brand searches. So if you see that your brand searches are rising, that's a good indicator that your brand is on the rise as well. Before going into anything big and really kind of committing to big budgets, I would also really kind of recommend testing. So in some cases, like for instance, digital channels, you can do the proper A/B testing, which is based on the audience. But in some cases, that is not always possible. So for the likes of, let's say, billboards and out of home, for that, it's better to do the geographical split, which you can also use on the digital channels, because like, for instance, the example below here is based on the YouTube test that we did in Dresden and Essen. This really kind of was determined that in one of the cities, so in Essen, we basically kept it as business as usual, and in Dresden, we added the YouTube campaigns atop of it. And because both cities are very similar in terms of the size of population density, and also had a very similar numbers on our side, we actually saw a very kind of positive result. So as you saw, like the start of campaign was in around 18th of March, and a couple of days later, we started to see the Dresden line in terms of performance started to deviate from Essen. So we've seen at least like approximately 150% uptick in performance. And this is a really kind of good indicator for you what to expect when you're doing something similar on a similar scope on the bigger scale afterwards. And lastly, there's also uplift studies that can be done by digital channels, mainly YouTube and Facebook as well, and display channel, which are also pretty accurate, I think, in giving you the ideas of the uplift that your brand campaign is bringing. In terms of what we did at Taxfix, we really kind of didn't stick to kind of one strategy only. We did the kind of mixed media, multi-touch point campaign, because in my personal opinion, one of the key ways of really building your brand is for your customers to be able to see to be able to interact with your brand in different places, in different touch points and different media. The more touch points you are interacting with customers with, the more they will remember you and the more they will trust you. Because if they only see you on TV, yes, it is kind of important, but at the same time, then it's still only one media. When they see you, for instance, on the TV, or they see you on the internet, they see you on Facebook, they see you on YouTube, they started to remember, oh, those guys are everywhere, so maybe I should check them out. And what we did was we went with the out of home, which is this, which was the billboards in 7 major cities in Germany. We went for digital out of home, which actually can be bought on the through programmatic buying via DSPs. So you can do it either yourself or the agency can help you, and there you can really target it. It's almost like buying the display banners on the internet. We did partnerships with a couple of publishing houses here in Germany as well, and we did a guerrilla posters campaign in Berlin, which was basically just A1 sized posters plastering the city everywhere you could find. We also added the YouTube and Amazon videos atop of that, and one of the most important thing is that we try to keep the whole continuous message across all of this media, plus across all the acquisition channels. Because again, like if there is a mixed messages and mixed points, people might get confused and they might not remember the brand as one and the same thing. While in this case, they really kind of start to associate you with certain approach, and they start to identify you by that approach. Yeah, so do's and don'ts. I think from the do's, definitely plan in advance. It's very important because you can't really do it in the last minute. This is something that you really need to think about. You really need to plan it properly, and you need to have the right idea and the result that you're aiming at. Cheapest media is the last minute. So if you really, if this is your strategy and you want to go for absolute last cheapest media, it is something that you can buy in the last possible moment. It's not going to guarantee you quality, but it's going to give you the cheapest price. On the other hand, if you want the highest quality of the media, you do need to buy it in advance. It will be a little bit more expensive than the last minute deals, but it's actually significantly better quality, which might bring you better results depending on your brand. Leave 4 to 16 weeks for production. No matter which channel you choose, still leave at least between 4 and 16 weeks, because it will really help you to kind of make the whole thing happen correctly. Have BI analyst handy. I cannot stress it enough how important it is to have the good analytics in-house, how much it is important to have a data engineer in-house to basically be able to give you all the right data after it and be able to help you track it. Clear message and proposition is a must. Also, aim for volumes to be able to track. So if this is your intention, that you really want to make the spike, you have to get the volumes. You have to have enough volumes there. Strong copy and image is also very important, and also go for the frequency. By frequency, I mean, like, for instance, as an example, if you go with a really big and really cool billboard in the middle of the city, but only one of them, yes, it will be very expensive. Yes, it will be very visible. You will get a lot of impressions on it, but in reality, it's probably not going to bring you enough of the results. It's much better to have, for instance, 1,000 smaller placements in more hidden places, because at the end of the day, it's again the multiple touch points that make the difference. On the other hand, don't rush it. Don't save money on production, because the quality of production is important, because that's how the people will remember your brand. Spread it out over a long time. Don't do that. Basically, this is back to the volumes and frequency. If you have the budget of, let's say, 50,000 euros, it's not much money. You could potentially buy a lot of media that will last you for a couple of months, but then you will never see the real impact of that. So better spend it right now, in a short period of time with high frequency, to be able to prove your point and really make the difference. Don't use premium placements on their own. So because there are only few of them, and only them will not give you enough of the visibility. Don't use one media and hope for the best. Same point. Don't use mixed messages. Ensure the continuity of the message. Don't expect immediate results, because really, yes, you will see some impact on the likes of impressions or tracking, or on clicks, on traffic to your product service, but really, like, for the brand to really start taking food, it takes a while. Really building the brand can take months, if not years, and you really need to be committed to building it. That's why be clever about the planning in advance. And lastly, don't use multiple channels in different timings and locations, because if you basically say, okay, I'm going to run one campaign now in Berlin and another one in Munich, if they're both small enough, you're not going to see the results. Also, if you do, for instance, one campaign in Berlin outdoor, for instance, in March, and then you do the digital one in May, again, this is not enough. You try to stack them up as much as possible and try to make this multiple touch points happen. So yeah, these are the main do's and don'ts, and pretty much this is my presentation. So I think my whole point is that I really want you guys think that the brand is not a scary thing. You need to be clever about it. You need to approach it in the correct manner. But at the end of the day, even if you're a local business, you still can do it, and you can do it in a correct way, and actually in a pretty cheap way as well. And the only thing is manage your expectations and don't expect that the results will be coming immediately. You will see some tweaks and twitches, but overall you need to be committed to the continuous brand spend. And at the end of the day, it will pay off. So think about it early on. Don't wait until you maxed out on all your channels otherwise. That's it.